Alright, so let's get started with this video by creating the home page. Alright, we'll be starting with the header and then the main content, and then we are going to build the footer. Okay, so basic layout for the home page. So in the last video we just tested and designed if it is exactly working or not. So we can right now go ahead and start building the header and the footer components. Okay, so let me just create a components folder within the root of our application. All right, inside that components folder I am going to create a header. Okay, header.tsx, and over here I am going to create a functional component and export default function header. Okay, and if you want you can also define the type, which is going to return a gsx element. So let's define the type of this function, that is react element. Okay, so this is optional, that React itself understands that it's going to return a React element by inferring what is the return type. Okay, so this is optional. If you would like to do it, you can. And so now let's return a simple text of, let's say, header. Okay, and later we're going to replace this contents, and also let's create another file for the footer. Okay, so just simple stuff, guys. If you want, you can skip this video and just copy paste the code, and later you can just take the juicy part, okay, or the interesting or the learning part which you can get from this course. So let's design the footer, and so that's done. So now if we go back to our page, we do not see anything because we haven't embedded the header and the footer yet. So for this we need to go to the layout.tsx and import the header and the footer component. Okay, so we are going to wrap the children with these two elements, that is the header and the footer. All right, so by doing this in the root layout.tsx, all your different files will have the header and footer, instead of you manually going to each and every page and adding the header and footer. All right, so let's add in the header here, header component. All right, like so, and also the footer. All right, so our entire application is wrapped within the header and the footer. So now if we go back to our application, we should see the hello world button that we created in the last video, wrapped with header and footer. Okay, so so I just made a mistake, so this should be just footer. By mistake it got emitted as a tag, like so, and now everything should look fine. Okay, so if you just go back to our page, we see that our main section is wrapped by the header and footer. Okay, so now we just need to give the entire space the minimum screen width, screen height, okay, to the main content, and whatever available space initially is for the header and the footer. Okay, so for that, what do I mean is the header should stay at the top and the footer, the minimum height should be at the bottom screen. Okay, so so that as contents keep growing, the footer also keeps expanding, and the main content as well. All right, so I hope that made sense. So let's try to do that. So on top of the header we can add a div by the class name main dash container. So if you have no idea what this class name does, you can just refer the globals.css, which I told you to copy paste in the last video. If you haven't watched that, you can just take this globals.css, which you can also find this in my git repository. Okay, which you can find it in the video description of this video. Okay, the description of this video. All right, so now let's go back to our layout.tsx, and within this div we just need to wrap the header and the footer. Okay, so I'm hitting alt and the top arrow, or option if you're using Mac, and if we save that, and also we need to wrap the children within the main tag. Okay, so this gives the browser's inference that this is the main content of the page, and let's give that main tag, and within the main tag we are going to give a class name of flex grow. Okay, so this is a property which is takes the entire available space within the window. Okay, so this main container is basically I have created a flex box with a flex column, and whatever the available space, okay, that is available for main, it will take the entire space. So that's what we are going to add the property of. Alright, so that's done, and let's pass children inside that. Okay, so with that done, we should see some changes. So if we go back, our header is at the top and our footer is right at the bottom, and in the middle we see the main content. Okay, so by doing this I can show you an experiment. Let's go back to the home page and let us replace this button with some very large content. Okay, so we can just say lorem maybe 10,000. So that's a lot of text, and if you see, if we scroll to the bottom, you see the footer over there. Okay, so our footer will remain at the bottom forever, despite how long is the main content actually is. Okay, so our footer will remain at the bottom, or like how much ever the content size actually is. Okay, so even if the content is very less, it will stay at the bottom of your screen, and it will exceed after that. Okay, so let's undo everything and get started on our header component. Okay, so let's go to the header and start building it. Okay, so let's replace this header with the nav tag. So let's replace this with nav and give a class name of nav. Okay, again you can just refer the globus.css, and inside the nav tag I am going to give a class name of flex between. Okay, so I just want to put the logo to the left side and the login button to the right side. Okay, so that's why I'm using this class name, and this is, I'm not using any tailwind css, by the way. These are all predefined custom css classes which you can find in the globus.css, and in between that I'm going to pass in the image of our the logo of our application. So for that, let's import the logo. Okay, so we can go use a import alias slash that is going to be slash public slash images slash then the logo. Okay, logo.png, and we can use this inside this with an image tag, and let's pass in the source of this. So this will be an object, okay, which contains the source property. Okay, and it has all other properties. So if you're importing like this in Next.js, like the width, height, the quality and all that. Okay, so I'll also be showing you that later in the videos, and you might be wondering, if you already know Next.js, that why am I not using image tag. So I just want to create a separate video explaining in detail how the Next.js image actually works. Okay, so that's why I'm just using the simple image tag and show you the difference between using the regular HTML image as well compared to the Next.js image. Okay, so let's give the alt as logo, and by that, if we go back to our application and see, we should be able to see some changes. Okay, so there you go, we see the nav tag which has some gradient. Okay, and also we need to resize the logo. Okay, so for that we can just give a class name of, or we can just give the width. Okay, so width is going to be 200, and the class name is going to be a pointer. Okay, so we want to show a cursor pointer when we hover on the image. Okay, so with that done, yeah, it looks good. So now let's finish the rest of the header. So after this, we can use a button, okay, to indicate a nav link on the header for the properties. Okay, so I'm going to import button from Andy, and this is going to be a ghost element, which means it doesn't have any it has a transparent button, okay, with some border. So that's the ghost element of a button, and inside that I'm going to rate properties. All right, and if we just go back and see, you see that properties. Okay, so also we need to since I've given the flex between, so it has gone to the right, so I just wanted to shift it to the left, okay, and put the login button on the right. So for that, let's fix this. So in between the two elements, we can use a separate class name called flex. Okay, align center. Okay, so this is just a flex box with a align item center property, and in between that we can just pass this to, and after this we can actually pass in the login button. Okay, so for now I'm not going to I'm just going to keep a simple like login with Google. Later we are going to implement Google authentication, and for that we can just keep a placeholder button. So between the flex between div we can create another div for the login button. So I'm just going to give this a button with an icon of we are going to use a Google icon, okay, that we are going to import from design icons. Okay, so let us do that. So Google outlined, so this is going to be like a component which you are going to import. Okay, when you install design, the icons also get installed automatically, so you can just import the Google outlined icon from design slash icons. Okay, so we can import this as follows. So Google, sorry, I outlined. Okay, so this is going to be a named export, so that is coming from @ant dash design slash icons. Okay, so you don't need to do an npm install to have this. Okay, so you can just directly import this from @ant design slash icons. Okay, not just from &d. Okay, so by that our all errors are gone. So let's close this button tag, and now we can put in the text of like login or register. Okay, so by doing Google OAuth, we can either log in or register. So if the user doesn't exist, it will register and then log in. If not, it just logs in. Okay, so register, and by that we should see some changes. If we go back to the UI, we see the button over here. Okay, so if we hover on this, we get that. So this is everything from design. Okay, the default hovering and everything. I have not much customized it. Okay, so don't get overwhelmed that how did I actually do this and all that. So you can just refer the documentation of design, and you can get every single thing available over there. Okay, so this is just the default button. If I give the button a type of primary, you will see a button something like this with with some default background color. Okay, so that's the difference between the type, the prop which you pass in between this button. Okay, so if I pass in the type as primary, you get this type of button. Alright, so everything is looking good, but we need some gap in between the logo and the nav link. So let's provide a gap, okay, by providing a style tag, and probably I should have done within my globals.css, which I just observed, so that's why I'm doing it. So let's give a gap of 16, which means 16 pixels, and that should fix the indentation. Maybe I give it for the wrong div, so it should be over here. All right, okay, so there we see, and yeah, so our header component is done. Now let's move on to the footer component. Okay, so let's go back to the footer. So now let's use the footer tag, and in between that we are going to give a container, sorry, a class name of name footer. Okay, inside that giving a class of container. So this container is basically some padding onto the left and the right side, so that it doesn't stick to the ends. Container. Alright, so in between this we are going to actually place the footer. Okay, so first of all we need a divider where that separates the main content and the footer. Okay, so let's import divider, that is from &d. Okay, so you get a divider component as well, which you can also refer the documentation, and after this divider we can put in the footer text. Okay, so this is a class name, and in between that we are going to give a text. Okay, so let's make this a paragraph element, and the footer is going to be easy homes. Okay, and I'm going to use a copyright symbol, that is &COPY. so this will give us a copyright symbol with a semicolon, and now we need to get the current year, whichever year we are viewing this website. Okay, so for that let's create a constant called current year. Okay, so we can get that by using the inbuilt date function, date constructor. Okay, so we can use the new date by initializing it, and we can get the full year after initializing this. Okay, so get full year. Okay, so you also get suggestions for that, and now we can dynamically import this variable. Okay, so we can interpolate this variable called current year, and finally all rights reserved. This is actually not at all necessary, but you just need to do it for the sake of the website, right? So current year, did I spell this wrong? Alright, so we need to give this a type maybe, or I forgot to invoke this. This is a function, okay, which will return the year. Alright, so with that done, if we go back to our page, you see the header. Alright, so we see the footer, nice and good. Again, if you want, you can just copy this code and paste it if you don't like to type. And yeah, so now let's go ahead and build the hero section. So after that, we are going to build the about us. Okay, so this video is just going to be very static. Okay, we are not going to implement any kind of functionality, just to get the foundation right. Okay, so at least we get something to display instead of just like ugly looking website. So that's why I'm also using design as the UI component, UI library, so you don't have to write much CSS and waste your time there. So let's go back to the header component, and now we are going to build the hero section. So now let's go right above the nav tag and give a class name of hero. Okay, so I don't think this is a hero also, so just we are just giving two buttons for to browse the properties or to add a property, and a search box just to search for properties, and also a title and a subtitle. Okay, so we can get started with that, and within this we can just pass in the title with a h1 tag. Okay, so we are going to give the title of finding your perfect home. Okay, so we can just use another span tag just to highlight the word perfect home. Okay, so let's put this inside that. Okay, so within the span tag we can just give the class name of color dash secondary or color dash sec, which will give us a green color that we decided that we'll use in this website. And for this h1 tag, let's give the class name of hero title. Alright, so that's done. And now when we go back to our application, you see our title over there, finding your perfect home. And after this we can use the search properties component. Okay, so which we are going to build after building this component of hero. So now let's give a paragraph tag and give it a class name of hero subtitle. Alright, so in between the p tag, let's use the search for your perfect home in the best locations around the world. I know it sounds so fancy, so but just something, just a placeholder. If you want, you can just modify this according to what you feel. And yeah, so this is the subtitle, and now we are going to create a separate component to just search the properties. Okay, so I'm just going to put a placeholder over here, or just a comment which we are going to use here. So search box. Okay, and after this we are going to place two buttons. One is to browse the properties and one is to add the properties. Okay, so let's create a button. Okay, that is from Andy, and let's give the name of browse properties. Okay, and later we are going to use the nav link and just pass it to another page. So we are just now building the UI for this, and let's duplicate this and do the same for listing the property. So list property like so, and with that done, when we go back and see, we see those two buttons over here. Okay, and we just need to center align them. So let's use the flex box. Okay, so this is a flex element from design, which I also wanted to show you that this even exists. Okay, so this is we can use this as a flex box by giving a justify center and giving it a gap of 8 pixels, and in between that we can just put this two elements inside that. So this will use a flex box with justify item center and the gap of 8 pixels. Okay, so if we go back and look, we see the items placed in the center with a gap of 8. Alright, so with that done, let's now continue with the search box, which I just left as a placeholder. So now within the components folder, I'm going to create another file for the search component. Okay, so let's call this search properties. Okay, so let's sketch our component, and within this we are going to use a form element in order to enter the search text and a button to search for properties. So let's give the div a class name of flex center. So this is a flex box with align item center and giving some padding on the x-axis 1. Okay, so that it doesn't stick to the corners. Okay, so when we use in a mobile screen, it sticks to the end, so that's why I'm using this. And now it's time to use the form element from design. Okay, so let's auto import that, and within the form element we are going to use the input element. Okay, so form dot item, and in between that we are going to pass in the the name as type. Okay, so this will be the type of property that we are choosing, like is it going to be a rent or is it going to be lease or for sale. So with that, and we can just close this, and in between that we can render our input or the drop down element. Okay, so for that we can import select from Andy select. All right, so this is we are going to pass in our default value, so that is going to be rent. Okay, so we are giving all caps. Okay, because we are using a SQL database, and for the enum types we are going to use caps. Okay, so that is why we are capitalizing this. And options, we are going to pass in an array of options. Okay, with array of objects with basically the value and the label. Okay, so what will be the value? Okay, that will be sent as form submission while submitting the form, and one more is the label, which will display in order to for the user, that will be visible to choose the item. So we can just pass in an array with option value, so that is going to be rent, and next is the label, so that is going to be like we can say for rent. All right, maybe I just messed this up. All right, so this is done. We can just duplicate this for the next value, and this is going to be for sale. Okay, for sale. All right, so that doesn't look good. Maybe I need to close a tag, and in between the select tag we are going to this is just going to be a self closing component like so, and we can pass in the other props like the style, where we can specify the width of the search box. By default it will be like around 100 pixel. We just want to keep it a little wide or narrow, I'm not sure. So anyways, so let's give a style of 120 pixel, a width of like 120 pixel. All right, and then the size is going to be large, so by default it is medium. Okay, so and then large, and then the values we are going to deal in the later video. So for now we are just going to we are just constructing the UI. Okay, so the functionalities we are going to handle later. with that saved, we can auto format this, and now we can also duplicate this for the location. Okay, so location is going to be a free text. Okay, so we can also create that component right below this form item. Trust me guys, this and design form is like very magical, because you don't have to like create any kind of state or anything. When you submit the form, you get all the different values that you actually use by providing this name attribute for every form item. Okay, so that's the best thing I like about and design forms. So just don't get bored. So this is very interesting, and you will find a lot of value inside this component library. All right, let's give this a name of location. And within this, we are going to use the input element. Okay, so input, and this is going to be dot search. So we are going to specifically use the search input element. Okay, so if you refer the documentation of and d, okay, so I just need to use the input element with input, and we have different kinds of input elements which you can actually use. Okay, so we are going to use the search. Okay, so this is like the search, somewhat like this we are going to use. Okay, so if you don't understand, you can just click on show code and get the code of this particular component which you want to use. Okay, so just by that I researched and built this product. Okay, so you too can do that. You can use any component of your choice, and you just don't have to follow me blindly. Okay, so input search, and we are going to pass in some props. So the size is going to be large, and then the enter button. Okay, so you can get some auto suggestions also. If you don't understand, you can just click on control space or command space, or sorry, control space here as well. So you can get all different kinds of props that are applicable for input search. Okay, so the enter button is going to be search. Okay, next we are going to give a placeholder of like search for a location. Like so, and then give it on search prop. Okay, and maybe we can just do this later because we are not dealing with functionality. Okay, so we can just close this up, and yeah, so maybe everything looks good as far as the code. Now we can just import this within our which component were we building? Header, right? So let's replace this placeholder with search properties component, and with that saved, we can just go back and have a look. We get an error. That is because we are using some kind of client components in from and design. So we need to explicitly mark that component as use client. Okay, so that all of our contents will be rendered on the client side. So with that, we can just go to the top of the page. Okay, sorry, not header, specifically the search properties, and we can use the following directive named use client. So this will be treated as a client component, okay, rather than a server component. And if you kind of have any kind of interactivity or like something else, we always need to mark this component as use client. Okay, and make sure you don't mark every component as use client. So this will actually take away all the benefits of us using Next.js. Okay, so whichever page you find it static and does not have much interactivity, just like plain HTML CSS rendered, then you can just leave that. By default it is a server component. You don't have to mark that as like use server or nothing like that. So by this we can go back to our UI, and yeah, there we see, but our components are not well aligned. That's because I forgot to give a property for the space. Okay, so we just need to use a flexbox. So for using the flexbox, we can use the space component. So this is a component which you can use similar to a flexbox, but we can, you can just play around with it. Like you can keep this a horizontal layout or vertical layout with some specific gap. Okay, so you can just have a look everything. So we have a property called space dot compact. Okay, so this will attach the two elements, like stick to each other without any border radius like this. So we can, like, we can refer the code from here, you see that it has used a component called space.compact. Okay, so we can use the same as well within our search properties. So right after this form tag, we can import space from andy.compact. All right, so in between that, or we can just cut this and paste it above this closing form tag, and with that saved, we can just go back, and there we go. So we see the two form inputs stick to each other without any kind of border radius. So this looks neat and fine. Okay, so we have the drop down from design. So this is the default. If you want, you can customize it even more. So I'm just going to stick with this. So this is the beauty of, like, design. So it's very easy to use, very compact, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. Okay, so I can also search for a location, so and hit search. So everything looks good, and let me just get rid of this button later. So yeah, and maybe I forgot to use a divider in between the hero section and the header, so let's do that. So right before the hero section, let's use a divider component which I showed you just previously, and divider from Andy, and we can just use that as a self-closing component. And if we go back, there is a divider but with some margin, but we do not see that. Maybe we need to style it a little bit. So you know what, I can just use the HTML HR horizontal rule. Okay, so you can just use anything. It's not like completely restricted that you need to use this or anything. So we see that the border, the thickness, everything is fine according to me, not looking that bad. So we are going to just stick with this. Okay, so yeah, our header component is now successfully built. Now we can just go ahead and build the about us section. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the home page and just build this very quickly. Okay, so it's not of much educational importance, just not very important as far as learning perspective. So now we can go back to the home page and start building the about us section. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of this hello world and start with a div and give this a class name of container. Okay, so inside the container we are going to give another class name of section. Alright, so inside that we are going to use the grid from design. Okay, so we don't have to like manually import grid, but we can just directly use the rows and the columns from Andy. So like use a row, so this will be treated as a grid internally by design, and by that we can give this a gutter, which means that there's a spacing between the grid that we are using. So this is like a, we can just pass in an array, which is like the first element is the spacing on the horizontal axis, and the second element is the spacing on the vertical axis. So we are going to use 32 pixels on each side. Okay, and in between the row we are going to obviously use the column. So that is column from Andy, and in between the we need to pass in few props to the column, so that we are also using this for the mobile screens as well. We are making it mobile responsive, so use the access tag for extra small screen. We are going to use the entire space of the entire viewport width. Okay, so every component in Andy, so your entire viewport width is divided into 24 sections. Okay, so each like half of this page will take 12 and the complete is 24. So for the mobile screens we want to use the entire space, so we are going to pass in the entire 24 blocks of viewport width. And for the large screens we are for medium and above, we can say that we are going to use the two different sections. Okay, so by using the medium screens as 12 blocks, which means that on the left side we are going to place the image of the about us section, and the right side will be the text. Okay, so let's use the image tag. Okay, and later I'm going to replace this with Next.js image, which is used for image optimization, and the source is going to be let's import that. First of all, import about us image, public / images / about us .jpg. Okay, so you can also find this within the images folder within the public, okay, within the repository for this course. Okay, and we can just pass in that value in between the source tag, that is about us image dot source, as I told you. All right, and let's give the alt as about us. And yeah, after this, what else? Let's also pass in some few class names. So the class name of this is going to be like about us. Okay, about us image, and then we are going to use another class name, that is expand. Okay, so this expand class name will take the like the available space within this column. Okay, so that it doesn't take the how much over width it is, so it will expand how much over space it has. So by using that property, and we can move on to the next column, that is the about us information itself. Okay, so we can use another column. Again, we are for extra small screens, we are using the entire viewport width, and for medium screens and above, we are going to take half of it. And now this is just going to be very boring. I'm just going to paste in some content, which you can also find within this link in the description for this repository, and you can just copy the contents and paste in over here. Okay, so that I just don't want to waste much of your time and just writing boring stuff and waste your time. Okay, so let's now paste in the content. Okay, so we have some few tags like the h1 tag of about us, then the paragraph which I've also given a class name, which gives it some margin, some font styles and all that. Okay, all of this class names you can refer to the globals.css. And yeah, so this makes up the about us page. So now if we just go back and have a look, there we go. So we see the image on the left side with some shadow of purple, which makes it look better, and we have the about us the text itself. All right, and later we are also going to deal with Next.js fonts. Okay, so that we can optimize fonts and also do not depend on third-party services like Google fonts and all that. Okay, I'll also come back to that, why we are using Next.js fonts, and it's going to be a lot of educational value in that. Okay, so now we are just going to paste in the contents of this about us section. All right, so I guess we are done for this video. Okay, so if you come so far, and I'm sorry to make such a long video, I just hate making long videos and make you all bored. Okay, so if you want, you can just completely, you would have skipped this section, but if you come till here, so of course you are so interested in building this course and learning a lot. All right, I really appreciate that. And yeah, so let's close the topic for today, and let's start continuing building further blocks of this project from the next video onwards.